Hey guys, what's pimpin'? It's me, Brandon from Canon Picture Productions, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Canon 50mm f1.8 lens. This lens is a favorite among the filmmaking community, and you may also hear it referred to as the Thrifty 50 or the Nifty 50 because of its many extensive uses. So what I'm going to be doing today is breaking down some of the specs on it, and really getting into why this is such a useful tool to have in your filmmaking tool bag. Let's begin with the pros. First up, we have the cost. This is Canon's cheapest in-production lens. It runs for $125 in most stores, B&H being my preference because of their reliability and their incredible return policy. You can also find used ones on eBay or maybe Amazon that's even cheaper, but personally I always like to buy new. That of course is completely up to you. Hey, that rhymes. Wait a second. That's why they call me Slim Shady. Second, we have the size. This is a very nice sized lens. It's quite lightweight and is equally as compact. Of course, it's not like a pancake lens, but it will fit easily in any camera bag and doesn't cause the camera to be front heavy. The design is extremely nice, although it feels a little plasticky, probably because it's made of plastic. This is a downside for some people, not really for me. I don't mind the feel one bit. While on the topic of design, we have our third pro, which is the aperture. This lens has an extremely nice low aperture of f1.8, which is the reason why so many people choose to get. I would like to take a moment to recognize what could be the best derp face in the history of the internet. This lens. A wide open aperture means that more light is being let in, subsequently you can have a brighter image without bumping up the ISO, and then getting lots of unwanted noise, grain, and artifacts. These things that I just mentioned are perhaps the single major indicator of a video being amateur, so right off the bat, this lens will give you a more professional look. Having a large aperture also means that you will get a shallow depth of field. This can elicit extremely nice, and not to mention professional looking shots. Our final big pro about this lens is the sharpness and the detail. The 18 to 55mm kit lens that came with the camera was pretty nice and sharp for most of the time, or so I thought, until I got this lens. When I first looked at the footage in full screen on my computer, I was completely blown away by the amount of detail hidden in these shots. Take for example this close-up of a face. On my other lens you really wouldn't be able to make out all those little facial details, but with this lens it is as plain as day. Alright, so now that we have taken a look at the pros, I took quite a bit of footage with this lens over the Christmas holiday. Here are many of the shots that I took. Okay, so now that we have the pros out of the way, let's talk about some of the cons, which there aren't many of. Firstly, we have the focusing. Despite how much I love the low aperture, it can be hard to get in focus when there's always so much out of focus, and the focusing mechanism doesn't really help. You're actually turning the lens itself. Now, it's the same on the 18 to 55mm kit lens that comes with the camera. The difference is, with that lens, there's always a little bit of space between the edge of the lens and the rest of it, which gives your hands some space to grab it. With this lens, in its most compact form, the edge where you'd hold it actually touches the body itself, which can make it kind of hard to grip. This isn't a huge downside, but it definitely can be a drag at times. Second on our cons list, we have another downside, which is the autofocus. This isn't a huge deal for me either, because 90% of the time I use manual focus when I do video, which is what I'm primarily using this lens for. However, when I do use it for photography, having a quick and accurate autofocus is very important, especially when you're trying to capture a moment quickly. When in live view mode, it can usually focus in about 5 to 7 seconds, and when you use the viewfinder, it focuses in about 1 to 3. The viewfinder time is not bad at all, but the live view mode is definitely not something that is good about this lens. The third thing on our cons list is the noise, and I'm talking about sound noise. This can kind of fall under the autofocus category since it's only a problem when in autofocus, but you know, hashtag YOLO swag. I said that. The noise that this lens makes when it's focusing is quite loud. As you can see, this is the sound of the 18 to 55 kit lens. Here's the sound of the 50mm. Neither are necessarily quiet lenses, but you can hear how loud the 50mm actually is. Not a huge downside since, like I said, I only use autofocus for photography, and sound doesn't typically show up in photos, well, at least not the ones I take. The final thing on this cons list is that it doesn't have any image stabilization. This isn't noticeable when you have the camera on some sort of rig or a tripod, but when recording handheld, this definitely would be a nice thing to have. As you can see, here's a shot I took looking out my window, and you can see that kind of jittery motion because of the lack of image stabilization. Again, not a huge downside, but some stabilization would be nice to have in this lens. And this ends the cons list, so let's take a look at some other shots taken with the lens. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this video. Despite some of the cons, this is still a freaking incredible lens. Great image quality, great bokeh, which is the shallow depth of field, great sharpness, and most of all, great cost. I highly recommend this lens for any people just starting off in filmmaking / photography like moi. And as I said before, B&H is always the best place to go to get this stuff, in my opinion. Again, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time with my face organs eyeballs. Yeah. It's kind of hard to disappear when you're sitting